Hey everyone, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be talking about the Sony A7 Mark II. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Now, we already talked about the A7R Mark II, so let's go back a little bit further to the A7 Mark II. This was actually my first Sony camera, and honestly when I got this I fell in love with Sony, like instantly. Before I was shooting with Sony, I was using Canon. Canons were great and everything, and I love the color science with it, but something with Sony, and it's more reasonably priced, and I feel like you get a lot more out of Sony than Canon video wise. Now if you're doing photography and stuff, then yeah, I would stick with Canon, but Sony for video all the way. I use this to even shoot stock footage sometimes. I also use my A7R Mark II. Now the camera body itself, I was able to get under like $1,000, honestly, because it was used. The camera did come out in November 2014. It is a full frame and it does have internal image stabilizer. The batteries on that camera, they may last a half an hour. So you do have to get a lot of batteries. However, I found out when using the battery pack, I don't know, it like doesn't use as much battery power. So when I have two batteries in there, I feel like I can get through like a whole ceremony and formalities of a reception at a wedding without really having changing the batteries or having to worry about it, which is really nice. So again, this camera really has a lot of the same features as the A7R Mark II that I have. However, this does not shoot 4K. It does shoot 60 frames per second, so it is nice to slow things down in post for that cinematic feel. So when I switched to Sony, it did take a little bit time to get used to it and adjust a little bit. I did not have any Sony lenses. I just bought the camera body, and I was just going to buy an adapter and just use the lenses that I already have, like Canon lenses that I already have. So here in a little bit I can show you how the autofocus works when you put a Canon lens on to the Sony. And then we'll also go ahead and test the ISO settings, and I'll show you some footage that I already have that I did from the camera. One of my main go-to lenses when I use this is my Rokinon 50mm 1.4 f-stop. It does have an infinity focus, which is really nice because up to a certain distance, it even says like 10 feet up here. So if I set this back at least 10 feet back from my subject or talent, I can just set this on an infinity focus and they're going to be focused no matter what. And again, I'm not a photographer, I'm just a videographer. I just don't do professional photography, I just do videography. That's my main passion. So in upcoming video clips that you'll see, I am using this lens. Me and my buddy, we were at an abandoned house and we went out there to take some videos and photos. Alright, so here we are in the ISO test. We're at 125 for shutter speed. Our f-stop value is at 2.8 and our ISO is at 400. 500. This is 640. 800. 1000. 1250. 1600, 2,000, 2,500. And we're going to drop our f-stop a little bit. Our f-stop is now at 4 and our ISO is at 2,500. Going up to 3,200, 4,000, 5,000. We can definitely see a lot of noise on our small LED screen, and I'm sure by now there is a ton of noise. And this is at 6,400, 8,000, 10,000, 12,800. So we're gonna go ahead and test the autofocus settings with a Canon lens, and then we're gonna switch with a Sony lens. So we're gonna test the autofocus setting on this real quick. We're starting with it out of focus, and we are going to switch to autofocus now. Alright, and now it's done. And now we're gonna switch to the Sony lens. Alright, and here we are with the Sony lens. We're starting with it out of focus, and then we're going to switch to autofocus now. And it's done. So yeah, definitely a significant difference between these two lenses. So the only thing that I can think of that I don't like about this camera is, I mean, honestly, the battery life. I mean, just the body itself drains the battery like so quick. But when I add the battery pack, it adds so much more battery life to this camera. Now, it doesn't come with the battery pack. I'll show you. This is the camera itself. I got the battery pack because of the battery life. So if you get this camera, I would encourage you to get a battery pack for it. It's super simple to put it on if you haven't put it on before. It's just this little knob thing. Turns like a screw. Fits under here. You empty out the battery. This thing, slide it in, and then tighten it up. Make sure it's all the way up too. And then there's a little knob you twist, pop. There's a little lever that you pull, and battery packs pops out. Pops back in, lock it, done. So besides the 4K, the A7 Mark II, pretty much the same thing as the A7R Mark II. And if you're wondering what SD cards that I use for this, it's this. And I always get like 128 gigs at least. Just because it holds a lot of memory and I can get a lot of footage onto an SD card. And I'm always in the habit of, after a shoot, I come straight home. Before I even shower or do anything, I unload all my SD cards and I back everything up. So I never have more than one shoot on one SD card at a given time. And quite honestly, I mean, overall, I still think this is a pretty good camera for what it is and the price. I mean, the only tweak that, you really need to get is the battery grip. Alright guys, that's it for me. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. I'll see you guys the next video.